The Pledge of Allegiance. Invocation by word of life. Not here, okay. Roll call, please.
Sabers. Here. Rice.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington. Allen.
Here.
Sharks. Aye. Smith.
Here. We have a quorum. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing in consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove? Or any discussion?
I see that the Parade of Lights is in the consent agenda, and I see that we have Liz here. Do you want to just give a little shout out about it?
Absolutely. So I'm Elizabeth with Mitchell Main Street and Beyond. Thank you very much, Susan. This is a great and rich Mitchell tradition that has been happening for numerous years. This year's theme is Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Just want to thank all of the Mitchell Police Department, the Street Department. There's a lot of entities that make this happen every year that maybe people don't realize. So thank you guys for everything you do for City Council and supporting this event. It's going to be great. We're expecting the streets to be full again. I hear they're going to bring the glow sticks back, the Santa elves. Yeah, I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but that is just lining the streets. It's just absolutely fantastic to see the community come together for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Allen. Sharks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address mayor, member, city council on an item that is not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken.
Hello.
Mrs. Van Erdwick.
Hi, Sonia Van Erdwick, Mitchell Township. Happy fall. I haven't been here in a while, so I thought I'd give you a little COVID update since I'm all about it. I'm just going to reiterate again because they're still doing the same testing, which is the PCR testing. The person who developed it, it does not test specifically for COVID. It's supposed to be a qualitative thing that you look at and you can literally pick up anything. So what I'm hearing from people that I know, they're going in with flu-like symptoms, respiratory symptoms, whatever. They're calling it COVID. Okay, and so the problem with that is then what we're doing is we're scaring people into thinking there's this COVID, and then it goes back to everything that happened in the pandemic, and it's like a fear reaction, right? And it shouldn't be, because that's exactly what they tried to do. But I wanted to remind you that the PCR testing, the masks, and all of the COVID shots, boosters and all, are all experimental. You can actually go to a website, it's called How Bad Is My Batch? And you can look up your lot number, and you can find out there's certain lot numbers and batches, specifically to different states and counties, that have worse reactions and higher number of deaths. If you had one of those batches, you most likely got the most of the messenger RNA. There are some that are inert. We don't even know everything that's in it. But why I bring this up is because some people are still lining up for these shots. And you're not being told by your providers, and it's criminal, that, and I will say it, I'm not afraid to say it, it's criminal because they're all experimental and nobody's being told that. And so it's very sad to hear, and I work with people that have had vaccine injury, whether it's from the COVID shots or others, asking for help and what they can do. And there is help that you can get, but I want to remind you that not only are these shots experimental, but you transmit and shed. And what that means is when you have a shot, even the flu shot does this, you can shed on people. So what we're seeing is a lot of RSV with kids that are getting, well, that could also be from the flu shot. So if you look at like when the flu shots start coming out and people start getting sick, put 2 and 2 together. I mean, I myself haven't had any shot for 26 years or more, and I'm perfectly healthy. But what I want to say is you guys need to really watch out, and I'm just giving a warning. for the medications that they're using are also experimental. Paxlovid is a pill that came out. That is totally experimental, and people are not being told. I've already know people that were started on it, and they were not told that this is experimental. They were not told the possible side effects. And even in the sheet, you can go online, possible side effect is COVID symptoms. Isn't that funny? Same with the shots. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight, and then just please, 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 don't take those treatments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Cole, and I'm president of the Mitchell Pickleball Association. A little over a year ago, we approached the city and Park and Rec Board about building outdoor pickleball courts at Hitchcock Park. In '21, Nathan Powell, when the previous director, told us it was going to cost approximately $150,000, and to build 6 courts, and our portion was $75,000. And now, presently, with the new director, we were told that it is now, due to the costs, it has moved up to $295,000 total, and now ours is doubled to $150,000. So while we were fundraising, I had a gentleman that was interested in making what he called a major donation to the project and wanted name recognition. I arranged a meeting with Kevin and discussed name recognition and what was allowed with the park. According to the city rules and regulations from 2016, a major donor would have to pay 75% of the total cost of the project, so roughly $225,000. That major donor is no longer interested in making a donation to the city due to the city rules. I also had contact from an attorney who had a client that wanted to donate $25,000 to our project. So I told him the rules and regulations that were brought out from the city. They also have walked away and said if the rules change, please let them know. In '21, we were at 75. In '22, we were at 150, our half. And so this kind of makes it difficult for us to do fundraising and ask people to donate when the dollar amount keeps changing so drastically. We have donors questioning us on the doubling in the cost, and I feel that our integrity is kind of in question, and I don't like giving false information to people when we're doing our fundraising. I also found out that the city doesn't normally put up funds for the project in the same year that, like if Mitchell Pickleball comes up with their portion, they don't do it in the same year. So that means even though we were originally told we would be building in '23, it could be moved out to '24 or even later. So that's kind of what we've been telling the people. When we ask for donations, they're asking when the build is, and we're telling them '23. Now, and I have no idea. So I would like to make a proposal to the city that we move forward with building the 6 pickleball courts in 2023. Maybe with a bid letting, we would have our actual costs for the project, and then the city and Mitchell Pickleball Association could sign an agreement in which we would cover half. So Mitchell Pickleball, we have released, or we could release the funds to the city in the following example here. The city is actually holding over $20,000 of our money for us.
Okay, that's your time. That's your 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
So you're done. Let me ask you a question. Have you gone to Park and Rec Board with this?
Yes, that's where we started, yeah.
Yeah, but have you been back to them with your
Yes.
90,000? That's not what I'm hearing. Have they been back to them?
Not since I've been there, in terms of coming back now.
Okay.
Oh, in front
So-
of the board, okay. I have.
Yeah, you have to go in front, the Park Board is the place to take this initially.
I talked to Kevin on
And
that.
have them find out if they support this or where they stand with it, okay? Your construction costs, what you're being told is we're not trying to inflate it, we're not trying to give you bad costs. The problem is costs are rising very rapidly for construction.
Okay,
So that's beyond our control. I sat down Public Works before this meeting and went through the costs you were given, and they are realistic, and a couple of them, I think road base was maybe looked at a little higher, under the assumption that you're not going to be doing this for probably a year. The other issue here is we went through budgeting process from August, September, and October. It's too late to come in and ask for that at this point. If we give you the money now, somebody's going to be cut. So, but it's up to this council, obviously. as to what happens. If you want to get it budgeted for a year, you need to come in during the budgeting process of that year, not during, shouldn't be during the first reading, because that, we have a structurally balanced budget by the time we get to first reading, and anything you ask for at that point means somebody else has to give something up.
Right. I was actually told that, I mean, we were set to go in front of when you had your on budget, but
Okay.
because it reached your dollar amount, it was never brought up. But it was on the schedule. I was told from Kevin that he was going to bring it up, and it never got there. Correct or no, Kevin?
We enumerated our prioritized for goals as far as what we coming up first.
From Park and Rec Board?
Correct.
Okay,
Not near the top.
okay, that's what happened there. But
Okay.
if you want to ask for money for it, first of all, you need to go to Park and Rec Board, because our Park and Rec Board is a strong board, so they have a lot to say as to what happens in their facilities, okay?
Okay, yep.
And secondly, the request for money needs to be with their approval and in our budgeting process,
Okay.
okay? So right now, I'll tell you, probably, if we happen to find extra money, which there's a lot of considerations we need to be concerned with our contingency relative to proposed tax cuts the governor is looking at next year, as well as other things that are going to come up and costs escalating as they have. The odds that we'll have leftover money this year are not good. If there is some, you could come to council and ask them if they could look at reallocating that, but that wouldn't be till next fall probably, or late summer.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Can I just, before you sit down, how much money have you guys raised?
We're at almost 91,000.
91,000? Okay.
And in various, I mean, the city is holding some. One is, one of they said there was 15,000 they would give on the, when the dig started. I mean, it's not all cash,
Sure, sure.
So
Yeah,
it's very-
but you have in pledges or,
right?
and any in-kind kind of donations, like people
Nothing like
willing to
that.
do?
Pretty much, it's either cash or we've got that 15 sitting there and then the 20-some that the city's holding for
Sure.
us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council? Mr. Bender? Haven't seen you for a few weeks either.
Yeah, awesome. I don't have anything to say, honestly. So, you're talking about Parks and Rec, it makes me think of the pool. How's that coming along there at the rec center?
Could be coming along better, but we're working on getting her done.
So it is a disaster, right? And the best path forward is literally ripping that out of the ground and replacing it, right?
We're working on all that right now.
Going through the processes like usual. The processes suck, right? Don't they really suck? From the beginning, even that pool, maybe I'm wrong, I think some of the original projected annual costs of that place were like $270,000, and then once they actually went through, it ended up being about $420 a year. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'm sure someone was smoking weed on it, especially when they built that pool. It is a disaster, and I like that pool, and I think you should be a little bit more forthright about it. It isn't Pitt's fault. Pitts's fault. I mean, they were the general, but there again, the process, the people who actually vetted and verified, or whoever, the pool builders out of Canada. Now, I know everybody knows Canadians are really good at building pools, right? Well, obviously that was an oversight by somebody. How's that lake coming along? Is that going to get done?
We're working on that as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about just going out to that wetlands there and just throwing some arrowheads out there. Wouldn't that be funny? Just so that they...
Well, at this point, the archaeology study's done, so,
Dang it.
and they found nothing.
Oh, that's...
So I would appreciate it if you didn't go throw arrowheads out there.
Just thought it would be funny, right? Just because of the next study that'll have to come along. That pool alone, it'd be nice to see somebody hold themselves accountable at some point. That pool is a disaster. I walked through the rec center. There's a few issues, a few things you can improve there. But when I walked by the old pool, how long it took to put concrete in there. I mean, I know there's competent people working for the city, but they got to go through the processes and do all the stupid shit, right? And then and then I see you're ripping out the ceiling in there, and it's taken months to rip out the ceiling, right? I mean, I don't know who does these things or who pays for them, or who has to take a break before they work for 15 minutes and then take another break. I don't know what the process is. But I mean, I look at a job like that, and it's like, how can you not rip out that ceiling faster than a month?
Well, that's bid to the contractor,
And I
so
don't know- I don't
that's
know who
on
takes it. I
him.
don't see it. I just see the lack of maintenance on your own buildings at some point. So that's all. I think somebody should be held accountable. Somebody should take credit for that disaster over there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address council?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Hansen. Some of you may have heard of me before. I buy really bad properties around town and in Huron, and I make a living on making them really nice. I don't want to be up here speaking tonight, but a lot of people have been calling me lately to answer questions about what the city's been doing with real estate. So that's why I'm here. So I'm not up here to give any answers. I'm here to get some answers. My main question is about the old Northwestern Energy and the Daily Republic building. According to the public records, the city purchased the building for $300,000 in 2017. They transferred it to the chamber and then sold it for $100,000. So my question is, how can we as a community make sense of losing $200,000 on a real estate deal in the hottest market of all time? Can any of you guys answer something like that for me?
I'll just say that this is a time for comment, not for discussion.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering. So I didn't know if any of you guys had answers. I come in here for answers. So it doesn't make sense to me that we would, as a community, spend $300,000 of taxpayer money, transfer it, and then sell it for $100,000 when it should have appreciated in value. I mean, I make my money in my life buying and selling real estate, so I know it. So I'm just trying to understand how we would ever come to that decision, and if you guys ever follow up on these deals you guys purchase, because people call me all the time asking about these real estate deals, and I can't answer a lot of these questions. Some of them I can, and some of them I can't. You know, with the Kelly House, the Crafty Fox. I thought we were done with this weird selling stuff to the chamber and then giving it away after the Casey's lot, but it happened again. So I'm just wondering if any of you guys have any answers for me so I can transfer it on to the people that have been calling me.
Well, this is commentary, it's not discussion, so we're not.
Well, you don't have to discuss it, but I mean, I
Right.
figured you guys may, as city leaders, have some sort of answers. Did you guys ever follow up on these deals? Is there a liaison for the chamber? Do you guys have any? Since we gave this to the.
There is a liaison for the chamber, there's a liaison for MADC, so.
So we should have some answers about why we would lose all this money. Is that right? Just wondering. If you, I mean, I can send you guys some emails if you could follow up. It'd be great to know, because I feel like we lost a really good renter in the Daily Republic, and now we just lost another person on Main Street, and we're taxing people on Main Street, these business owners, and we're giving away property at a huge loss. So it doesn't make sense to tax business owners for their property, buy it for a lot, and then just give it away at a huge loss. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else wish to address council?
Can we put that on the agenda? for
No.
next time?
No. We'll answer his questions via email. Okay? Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion for city council recess to sit as the Board of Adjustment. Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mrs. Charles. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on application for Dakota Land and Property Management LLC. Dakota Land and Property Management LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate an automotive sales, repair, parts, and detailing business located at the northeast corner of Highway 37 and 54th Avenue, legally described as Lot 12 of Maui Farms, First Edition, southwest quarter of Section 34, Township 104 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Davidson County, South Dakota. Said property is zoned urban development. Mr. Janigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this, 5-0 with 2 absent. We had 2 letters returned in favor of the project. The applicant wishes to sell vehicles out there, not necessarily do any detailing or repair work, but that's what the ordinance states is all of those parts of it. He's going to gravel the lot out there, sell a few vehicles, put a building out there eventually. He won't have any vehicles that don't run out there because he doesn't want it to be a junkyard looking out there, so he'll have it nice and clean out there. The applicant is here if you have any further questions for him, or I can answer anything if you have them.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charles. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on application for Genesis Farms LLC. Genesis Farms LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate a medical cannabis dispensary located at 716 North Raleigh Street, legally described as lots 18 through 21, Block 4, Raleigh's First Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property zone CB, Central Business. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 5-0 with 2 absent. As you recall, they came in for conditional use at another location. Since then, they found this location. It's a bigger building. They'll have to do some rehabilitating to the building and the parking lot. We had 2 letters that were returned, one from letters that I sent out and one that you all received via email. Those are both addition of it because they feel it's a residential area. It is central business there. There are houses in central business that are grandfathered into that location. One question during Planning Commission was from one of the neighbors about all the cash that'll be on hand. They are working with a bank that'll be out of Sioux Falls. They've been working with FDIC for not just them, but the whole industry for procedures for that. And they look to have a cashless ATM on site to help reduce some of the cash that they would be using. So it can use debit cards, just not credit cards for that location. The applicant is here. If you have any questions for him or if you have any questions for me, I can answer them as well.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve. I'm wondering if there's anybody in the audience, though, that wants to comment.
We'll get them up here once we get.
Question on, are there conditions like
Can we, hold it,
building-
Steve, can we get a second
Second.
first? Okay. Go ahead.
if there are conditions concerning either building permit? I know there was talk of the sprinkler system needed and that type of stuff.
Yeah, so just remember that this is the conditional use permit, and we also have later on the agenda the actual
okay.
license for it.
Okay,
So
okay. For conditional use, yeah, that's fine.
Which we had, if you remember, they had
Yep.
been approved for their conditional
Yep.
use on Main Street.
Yep.
Where they lost out was the variance was not approved. So,
Yep.
Okay. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Mr. Reisdorfer?
Hello again, Emmett Rice-Stroffer from Sioux Falls with Genesis Farms. Just want to say I'm really looking forward to doing business in Mitchell. I think we finally found a good fit for a location. I did read the letters today that came in from the neighbors. Always appreciate that type of feedback. I think it's important for those neighbors to know if they're here or watching. The way we design the dispensary, the signage, the entrance, the exit, and the parking is all on the other side of the building, furthest away from the closest homes. So from the front door, you really just see all businesses. So we're trying to face the businesses and really just rehabilitate an old building that, from what I was told, there wasn't a lot of interest in. A lot of work. We got a good deal on it, but that means we're going to be putting a lot of work into it to make it look really nice. I promise the neighbors, I know this is a new thing and one of these haven't opened in Mitchell yet. My goal is to make it look like a dentist's office, really. There will be one sign on the front of it that says Genesis Farms. Our colors are green and yellow, but that's only in the logo. The rest of the building is gray, and then a darker shade of gray with a nice rock wall about 3 feet up off the ground. So I think it'll look nice, and my business plan addresses all aspects of security, safety, training, and all of that, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/21/22. Joni and Josh Rasmussen have applied for a variance in a minimum front yard setback of 8 feet versus 25 feet, and a side corner yard setback of 16 feet versus 20 feet to construct a wraparound porch and move the existing front door from the southwest corner of the house to the south side, located at 322 South Wisconsin, legally described as Lots 7 and 8, Block 12, Railroad Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County. Said property is owned R2. Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/21/22. Gold Key Properties LLC has applied for conditional use permit for multifamily dwelling units between 5 and 12, 7 dwelling units totaled in on combined lots, located at 705, 707, and 711 South Davison Street, legally described as lots 54 through 56 of Overlook Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property is owned R3, medium density. Motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Excuse me. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/21/22. Gold Key Properties LLC has applied for variance in minimum front and rear yard setback of 22 feet versus 25 feet for construction of a fourplex with attached garages located at 705 South Davison Street, legally described as lots 54 through 56 of Overlook Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property is zoned R3, medium density.
Move to set the date.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this one? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene as City Council. Entertain a motion for Board of Adjustment to adjourn City Council reconvene regular session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Rice.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Hearing and action on application to Corn Palace Shrine Club for a special event liquor license located at Masonic Hall, for November 12th, 2022 for a cornhole tournament.
Mayor and Council, Chief Coster of the Police Department, we have no concerns of this and recommend approval.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Sabers. Second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve 2023 applications for renewal of liquor licenses. Mr. Coster, any issue?
The Police Department has no concerns of these applications.
Motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address these? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve application to Genesis Farm LLC for a medical cannabis dispensary license at 716 North Raleigh. Mr. Johnson.
All right, well, you're familiar with this, the conditional use permit that was previously approved here tonight, obviously related to this same operation. Staff reviewed all of the applicant's materials in relation to this new property, and it does appear to meet all the requirements of the ordinance. As with the past dispensary licenses that we've issued, the recommendation was to issue those on condition that they do pass a fire inspection and complete the building permit process before they open for operation. So I'd suggest that if approved tonight, you impose those same conditions. And I know the applicant's here, and I don't know if council has other questions or if there's public commentary, but I think that's a good enough intro.
So since we had the first application that didn't go through, and now this one is up, would it be a 2023 application, or do we?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that up to the council of how to?
Yep.
try and do that?
That is a good point. I forgot to bring that up, but my recommendation would be to issue it for calendar year 2023 at this point, because we're so close to the end of the year, and the applicant still needs to go through the state process anyway, so.
Okay. Okay.
And just for everybody else's information, next meeting, we should hopefully have all of the applicants back, coming through their renewal process for calendar year 2023 as well.
Oh, okay. So with that, I'll move approval with the conditions of building inspection, building inspection, or fire inspection, the building permit process, and a 2023 application.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action award bid for waste tire disposal project 2022-21. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. Bids were open on November 2nd, 1:30 here in City Hall Council Chambers. One bid was received by Liberty Tire Recycling, LLC, based out of Savage, Minnesota. Unit price was for $238 per ton, for a total price of $30,940. The city will be responsible for $6,188 of that total. Bid tabulation is attached for your reference, and staff recommends approval.
Joe, when's the last time we did one of these?
We did this in 2019.
And what was the unit price then?
I want to say it was around 170-ish dollars.
Make a motion to approve bid award to Liberty Tire Recycling.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for 3-year cash rent lease of Park Hayland, wastewater treatment plant Hayland and landfill Hayland, project 2023-05. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, bids were open on November 2nd here in Council Hall Chambers at 1:30. One bid was received by Paul Stevenson. Bid prices are on the screen. If you want me to read through them, I can. But the bid tabulation is up there for your reference. We do recommend council approval to Paul Stevenson as shown. And with that, I'll open up to any questions.
So am I reading this right? It looks like it's quite a bit less than in past years.
So the actual grass property, as long as the landfill hayland for the alfalfa was down. One was down 35%, and the other one was down 70%. I did contact Mr. Stevenson, and he said the reasoning was the drought we had this year, and those areas isn't the highest quality of grass and alfalfa. And then on the flip side, the Park Hayland property is up from what it was in 2019. And from what he told me, that alfalfa is just amazing. It's some of the best around. So that was his explanation of why the numbers he submitted.
Okay, I'll move approval.
Motion by Mrs. Charks. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor, go ahead.
Unusual that we only had one bid, or do we usually get more, or there's?
So in past, we have received more than one bid. This year, just with, I don't know if it's, the way the weather's been, if producers are a little shaky on bidding work like this. But I'd say with the bids we got, we move forward, and, in 2025, when we bid these again, hope for better prices. And rain.
A little easy on our
And rain.
equipment, would you? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right. Anybody further discussion? Anybody from the audience want to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve streetlight request in the 1200 block South Kimball. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council, one streetlight has been requested It would be south of Juniper on Kimball. This does follow our light policy as far as placement and location. Street lights, they'll be placed on a wood pole installed by Northwestern Energy. We're charged a monthly fee of $14.84 a month, and staff recommends approval. I'll answer any questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
That spacing ends up being about the standard
About one
spacing
block,
we would
yep.
have?
Yep.
Okay.
How do you go about, a lot of dark roads? I mean, how do you go about saying yes, no?
So it's on a request basis, and we use our typical spacing, so 1 block.
So it's not about brightness or trees covering it or?
I mean, we do tree trimming if we need to. Yeah, well, I mean, we could put it on the other side of the street. Typically, Northwestern likes it on the side that the power's on. So there's some factors that play into placement. Yep.
Okay, further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve easement within alley for 611 East 7th. Mr. Schrader, it's your night.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Donna Wieland, who lives at 611 East 7th, has requested an easement in the alley located to the south of her residence. You can see on the screen her house favors the south side, which is right up against the alley. She's having some issues with her basement wall on the south side. A contractor came in with a recommendation to install anchors, which would put anchors out into the alleyway, approximately 12 to 14 feet. We're recommending a 14-foot easement so they can make those repairs. We have written in the easement agreement that it will be terminated immediately. The structure falls into disrepair, requires reconstruction, the house is removed, or the encroachment exceeds the approximate 14 feet. And the property owner will also be responsible for any repairs, say the anchors, when their anchors are installed, or if they would fail and would damage the alley. And with that, we do recommend approval of the easement, and I can answer any questions.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address this? Good luck. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2022-43, Lake Mitchell Marina Grant Technical Assistance Agreement with District 3 Planning. Mr. Schrader.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this agreement is with the Planning and Development District 3, basically to coordinate our EDA grant. They'll be responsible for record keeping. They act as a liaison between EDA and the city, ensure compliance with the grant requirements, review, prepare, and request payments, and complete project closeout. The agreement is for $25,000 for the services listed in the agreement, and we recommend approval. This is typical of grants like this. We've hired them in the past. Say, for instance, our past East Central Phase 2 EDA grant that we received.
Move to approve agreement 2243.
Motion by Mr. Rice.
Second. Susan.
Second by Mrs. Jarks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2022-44, an agreement between the City of Mitchell and the Mitchell City Employees AFSCME Local 2922. Ms. Zellwein.
Mr. Mayor and Council, included in the packet is the agreement with the previously tentatively agreed to items as part of the negotiations with the AFSCME union representing city employees. The agreement includes, it's a 3-year agreement with reopeners in year 2 and in year 3 for a percent, to discuss the percent to the ranges only for the increase. I do have one minor correction, and you'll see that later on the compensation plan too. On the back page where it showed the compensation plan, one of the positions was omitted, and that is the code enforcement officer. Since it's a non-certified position, it's covered by this contract. So That's just a minor adjustment. I have it corrected in the printed copy. So I don't have any other comments. I can answer questions if needed, but we do recommend approval. I do believe that this has already been reviewed and approved by the AFSCME union already.
Motion to approve it.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2022-45, an agreement between the City of Mitchell and the IAFF Local 4166. Ms. Zellwein.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I should have stated the previous one is our general office, or general employees. The IAFF agreement covers our firefighters and EMS staffing. Again, this contract reflects what has been discussed as part of union negotiations this year. It's a 3-year agreement with a reopener in year 2 and in year 3 for % to the wage range increase only. We did also have one just slight correction on this item too that I've corrected for the copy that the mayor has to sign. This section 2, availability outside of shifts, should say for critical staffing. So we did add those words onto the copy that the mayor has, and that's the premise behind our discussions we had when we approved the agreement with the union. I don't have any other comments. I can answer questions, but we recommend approval.
Motion by Mr. Sabers. Second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2022-46, agreement between the City of Mitchell and Teamsters Local Union 120. Ms. Zellwein.
Mr. Mayor and Council, included in the packet is the agreement with our Teamsters union that's representing our police employees. Again, this is another 3-year agreement with a reopener in year 2 and year 3 for the % to the ranges only. It includes all the previously discussed items as part of the negotiations up to this point. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer them. Otherwise, we recommend approval of the agreement.
Motion by Mr. Sabers.
Second.
Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, thank you to the employees and union and the city staff for working through the negotiations and getting a 3-year agreement made. I've sat on the council when we had 1-year agreements and didn't know the budget ramification impacts and past budgets without knowing how much we were going to spend based on ongoing and continuing negotiations. So this helps. The fact that if I think back 6 or 7 or 8 years that I would have thought we would be giving a 6% raise, I probably would have kicked myself. But in this age and time, I think that just keeps us up kind of with what employment trends are, and I think it is in our advantage to keep the people we have, keep them employed, so the services that we have from the city can be delivered with competent employees. So with that, I will be voting yes.
Okay.
And I apologize. I should have covered the wage increase. I had that for the compensation plan, so I overlooked that. I apologize. And this will be our 3rd 3-year agreement with all 3 unions, so we're very happy about that, both from the union and I think and from the city. So.
Okay. Further discussion?
And if I understand correctly, then what that means in year 2 and 3 is the only thing that will be discussed is
the % to the ranges only. And that's just really with so many unknowns with the economy right now and just not knowing what's going to happen in future years. It was difficult for the city to commit to anything beyond the first year without seeing what happens in the next 12 months. But we will start that process probably, I think we said by May or June in the contracts next year. So
it's also a benefit that we don't have to have it approved until November, so that it used to be that we had to have it done long before we were ready to talk about the final, so that is nice.
Okay. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience wishes to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2022-48, South Dakota DOT 5339, funding agreement routing software. Mrs. Pickett.
Mayor, Council, Jessica Pickett, Community Services Director. The agreement you see before you is for the required routing software that the DOT has us use, and we utilize the software for routing as well for our reports that we report to the state every year. Instead of paying the full amount that we budgeted for, we only have to pay the local share of $4,485.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-70, plat of tracks A through D of Freedom Estates, second subdivision of the Northwest Quarter, Section 11, Township 103, North Range 60 West, 5th Prime Meridian, Davis County, South Dakota. Mr. Janigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this plat looks pretty familiar to you. It should, because the plat itself is all the same. The legal is what got changed from the last time. When they brought the Mylars in, they were different from what the resolution was passed for last time. The Register of Deeds requested that the legal be changed on it for whatever reason, for recording purposes. Planning Commission recommended approval of this, again, 5-0 with 2 absent. Can answer any questions you have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. McCardle,
Second.
second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-71, plat of Lot 1, Block 5 of Woodland Heights, First Edition. Mr. Janigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 5-0 with 2 absent. This follows their master plan for down in the Ethan Co-op area, south of town. It's one of their last, I think there's 3 on, which the top part of that sheet is on the east side. I think they've got about 5 lots in that area that are left after this one. It's getting pretty full.
Getting full, yeah.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Savers. Further discussion? It's almost time to annex Mr. Greenway's property into this. He'll be an island. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-72, plat of Lot 1 of Wade's Addition. In addition to the southwest quarter of Section 3, Township 103, North Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Davis County, South Dakota. Mr. Janigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this 5-0 with 2 absent. It is outside the ETJ, but within the 3 miles of the city limits. So this will be county's zoning authority. It is ag res down there, so it can go down to 1 acre. Selling it to his son, they're going to demolish the existing house, build a new house there. There will be a variance for lot size for going to family member, and then for some setbacks with existing outbuildings that are there, just for where they put this acre of land on there. They'll hear this at their next meeting.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen. Second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-73, 2023 compensation plan. Ms. Elwine.
Mayor and council, included in the packet is a resolution that would set the compensation plan starting January 1st, 2023. We do like to get it approved ahead of time so we can start making the changes that have to happen for the beginning of the year. Included on the resolution is a 6% increase from the 2022 compensation plan, and we also have the budgeted annual performance-based step increases. This percentage increase was part of a negotiated agreement between the City of Mitchell and the city's 3 union contracts, and it is to ensure that city wages are staying within the comparison averages for the other first-class municipalities in South Dakota for fiscal year 2023. We did discuss a few changes during budget, so I want to make sure and point out that those changes are incorporated in this resolution. The first is we are increasing the number of firefighter paramedics from 11 to 13 authorized positions. The second is that we are removing the requirement for the personal trainer to receive the grant funding for that position to move forward. So that means the city would fund that if the grant funds are not received. Prior to that, it was a condition on the resolution as well as a job description. And it would also include adding 2 part-time transit operators, or bus drivers, that would be eligible for South Dakota Retirement System. That means they work more than 20 hours, but less than is 29 hours or less per year. So they get South Dakota Retirement, but they are not qualified for health insurance benefits. The budget impact for the percent to the increase change is $708,329, and that is included in the annual appropriation ordinance that council is approving tonight.
And yeah, just so, in the past, I've always asked how much the increase is going to be for the next year that we have to cover. I think we're sitting in a pretty good spot. We can cover this. The equalization numbers and other things that we had allowed the mill levy to not increase.
Went down.
The amount we requested is 6.1 million, whatever, something in that range. And we've got a lot of stuff this year, and we'll talk about it in the budget item, but I think we're sitting in a pretty good spot.
One other item I guess I should have pointed out in my overview is we also did have to increase our part-time wages up to the new minimum wage. So that when you look at the part-time wages, that grade 1, step A would reflect that new minimum wage that goes up January 1st.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. First reading of ordinance O 2022-16, 2023 annual appropriations ordinance. Ms. Elwine.
Well, you've heard from me a lot tonight. Included in your packet is the 2 overviews for the budget. I wanted to point out a couple things that might be different from the last times. If you would like me to go through the entire overview again, I will. On the first attachment that's labeled Annual Budget Overview, I've had some questions on, how much revenue the city has coming in and how much sales tax, or you can find that all in that first page of the narrative overview. It shows what the comparison is this year to last year. It also breaks out what our CPI for property tax increase was 3%, what that dollar amount amounts to is $171,255. We also had growth for property tax, which was 5.41%. There was the resulting tax increase or dollar increase for that. And then also, we projected a 3.2% increase in our sales tax budget. So that also resulted in another $368,000 increase. But that is still within what our actual receipts have been the past couple of years. So it's still a conservative budget projection. We aren't looking at collecting funds that we haven't collected in the past couple of years. There is an overview on the cash applied. We break out and show you what the revenue changes are for our special revenue funds. Now, those are funds that receive general fund support, but they also generate money from their operations as well. There's a detail of that. The enterprise funds, those are ones that are technically supposed to be funds that are self-supporting. Their fees and charges are covering their operations. Now, we talked quite a bit during budget sessions that we have several enterprise funds that are not doing that now, but that's why they're classified as enterprise funds. There you've got an overview on your expenditures by department, and then we also have, this is a breakdown of the general fund expenditures. So if you look, the largest expenditure in the general fund budget is our transfers out. That's partly because we have some one-time transfers. We're sending some grant money that you had earmarked in the general fund reserves over to the lake fund for the jetty construction. But the rest would be like our transfers out to the airport, the Corn Palace. We have some going to golf from our repayment of our health insurance fund. And then you can see the rest of the budgets moving down from there. And that's just general fund budgets. The next one is the budgets for all of our other funds. Of course, our sewer fund and water are both really high, but that's because you have several major projects in the works that are utilizing SRF funding. SRF is the state revolving loan fund that you've been discussing doing rate increases for repaying that debt. If you want to look, this is just an overall how the expenditure budgets look this year compared to last year. Again, you're going to see large increases in those utility fund accounts because we're doing those SRF projects. This is the breakout of transfers out and how they've changed from previous years. So you can see like Park and Rec, we're transferring 3.1. Before it was looks like about 2.7. There you can look at the other, the transfer out to Lake went up, EMS, and on down the line. Entertainment tax fund overview. This is our anticipated cash applied from reserves for 2023. In each of the items that we're using those funds for are listed below. This is our anticipated fund balance reserves. Again, council had asked for an overview on staffing changes, so that just shows where we are now compared to 2012. We're up 2 full-time employees from that time.
Since 2012.
Since 2012, correct. Contractual negotiations, I obviously updated that part. And then the health insurance fund that we're utilizing part of that health insurance loan repayment. These are the final numbers for the subsidy applications after council had their initial budget hearings or budget work sessions. And then the other thing I would just point out is on your capital improvement budget, there's a lot more overview, there's a lot more detail in here than when we were having our work sessions. Now that council's gotten through that and given us direction on where those priorities are. Again, you can see the largest number of capital improvements are coming out of the wastewater fund or water fund, much higher than any others, but we have quite a few utility projects planned for next year. It is, I think, really important to point out that, I'll make that too big. We have $76 million of capital improvements planned for next year. But of those, $67 million are coming out of enterprise fund budgets. The rest are funded through either special revenue funds or through general fund support. These are our capital projects that are over $500,000 listed out. We also categorize them whether it was infrastructure improvements, facility improvements, or equipment. And of course, the largest amount goes into our infrastructure, especially with our utility projects coming up. We do have a listing of all those by dollar amount as well. One thing that's new from previous years is Joe had prepared you guys a kind of a little snapshot of where these projects were during the budget work session. So I did just put that clip in here so you could refer back to where those project locations are at. The 3rd and Main Streetscape, there you can see that. Paving maintenance. I also have a chip seal map, but I did not have that into the report at the time when I did this report, so you'll have it for the next meeting. Facility improvements, you can see those listed, and those are also in order from most expensive down. And again, their location for those items. And this would be the phase 2 of the master plan, and now the light blue. I was like, I can't remember what color it was that was the phase 2, but there it is, the light blue. So, and then the smallest portion of our capital budget goes to equipment, and you'll see the equipment listed here as well. And that is in both enterprise, special revenue funds, or general funds. So they're coming out of all 3 funds. We do have a couple engineering or professional services budgeted for next year. The ones that would fit into the capital category would be the design engineering for bidding the 2nd and Main and 4th and Main streetscape improvements, and then the canal bridge design, which we did get a big grant to cover that, so, or at least a majority of it. 80%, that's what I got, okay. Yep.
Right.
We also have alternate funding sources that aren't coming from either revenue that we generate or taxes, so I have those listed out. When we've been talking about the $67 million of utility projects, you can see $65 million is coming from state revolving loan fund. And then we've got about $2.6 million in grants, we've got some restricted fund revenues, and then also some STIP money that we use for our projects. And they're detailed out. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask Stephanie, on the SRF loans, interest obviously is going way up, but we had those locked in, the interest rates.
Not all of them yet.
Not all of them, but I don't believe the SRF rates have gone up yet. Those have been holding.
Okay.
And no matter what, they're always below what the public rate is. They do it at a lower rate. And I can't, well, I don't know how long it'll take us to get through everything on the SRF apps. If we think we'll have everything in by summer or maybe late fall, but hopefully some of those will still be done early in the year so we can capture that lower rate. Oops. So I take this back. This should have been removed out of there. I just saw that, so sorry about that. We are not doing the drawdown. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have the surplus. We have the SRF revenue pledged for that. We took the design out. Those are the projects receiving grant support. So we have a DANR grant, airport runway project, the emergency shelter at the campground. We got a FEMA grant coming for that. We have an EDA grant for the jetty project at the lake, and another DANR grant for the recycling building. Our restricted capital reserves, future capital project fund, we are using $1 million that we had dedicated for the EDA jetty project, and $225,000 that we had that was set aside for the EMS ambulance chases purchase. And it's been started, but it won't be completed till next year. And then our STIP funds is the annual money that we get from the state of South Dakota for doing maintenance on our roads. So you can see those projects as well that are being utilized out of that fund. There's no other changes other than the last time you walked through the budget during work session, but I can certainly answer any more questions. I have our general fund overview here too if you need me to pull anything up, our worksheet that we work off of.
Any different indications on our contingency at 811 that would concern you at all, or at this point, sitting pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with where it's at right now. Are you talking about 2023, correct? Yeah, I don't have any problems with where you have it set. Our revenue is staying up within what our projection is for next year, at least for sales tax. So we're pretty conservative annually on projecting that revenue, so I think we're okay.
I know that at this point we have a structurally balanced budget, but this has been weighing heavy on me, and so I just feel like I have to say it. I really am struggling with the fact that we're not asking the golf to contribute to the Phase 2. We constantly, every time a group comes to us, today we're talking about the baseball, and they're coming to us with $200,000 to work on the new press box and the shelter. Pickleball just came. They have $91,000 waiting to build a pickleball court, and operating under the assumption that that was something that we were planning on doing, and rightfully so. And yet, and I know that the argument is that the golf course can't raise rates, but we expected the skateboarders to bring money to the game when they wanted a skateboard park, and the swimmers, and these are all organizations that don't have a lot of money in the coffers, and certainly they weren't in a position to raise rates, but they did fundraising. And so this is just something that I just feel like if there was a way for us to say, let's just ask the golf course if they can bring some money to put some skin in the game. That's our tagline, put skin in the game, And maybe we hold off on that and we let pickleball, who already has their money ready to go, and, you know, I just feel like we're setting a dangerous precedence by not requesting that something of this magnitude, where we're spending $550,000 without any ask or expectation. I don't know that we've even asked the golf course if they could raise the money. But I came with this like heaviness on my heart, and I'm like, I just have to say it. I feel, you know, I listen to the pickleball people and I'm like, man, my heart goes out to them. They've worked hard, and we're going to make them wait, and we're going to give $550,000 that would build more pickleball courts than they're even asking for, independent of their contributions. So I know that we have the votes to pass this, but I guess I just am making one final plea to see if there's any way you would consider just pressing pause on the golf course and say, let's let the golf course raise some money so that they can come to us and say, we have skin in the game too. Without that, you know, from now on, how are we going to look at people in the eye and say, we expect you to bring money. What are you going to give us so that we can meet you halfway? How are we going to say that to them if we don't have that same recommendation and that same request of the golf course? So there it is. I said my part. I'll sleep better tonight.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the board is already committed to raising rates at the golf course, or at least looking at it after, but it's kind of hard to determine what the rate should be until we have a finished product.
I think that's correct. Is that not correct, Mr. Nelson?
That's correct, Mayor. There will be some nominal increases for next year, but not dramatic increases, as we assume there'll be a more structured increase after the improvements are done.
Right, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not going to be done in one season. So the odds of you making up the losses next year, I predict that we'll lose memberships in the process of the construction. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm speaking out of school, but there's a chance that you're not going to have a full
I think you're
18
speaking out of school, Susan, yes. Exactly what you said. I don't think membership will go down with the construction.
I was
And
told that we
as many
wouldn't have a
times as
full
I've seen you
18.
out there golfing, Susan, I don't really think
I know.
You-
I don't.
you have
I don't
that
golf a lot
information.
since I got arthritis, but I do. I am married to a guy who does. So, and I have a son who golfs a lot, and a daughter who's a golfer. I don't know if that qualifies me to have an opinion, but let me at least have an opinion. So, I've had a lot of discussions, and that is a concern that I have heard repeated to me by not just me, but by really good golfers who also have that concern that we're going to go a couple of years and not have a full 18-hole golf course. And I love golf. I really do. I do, but it's a concern. And my point is, whether or not we do, my point is, why are we not asking them to not just raise rates? Because I think that you could look at, maybe Mitchell Baseball is going to raise rates too, but they also came forward with a $200,000 willingness to put their skin in the game. And, you know, pickleball has been raising their money and getting their pledges, and tennis and turf and hockey and swimming, and pick your place, the soccer complex. Everybody's been asked to contribute. And now we're going to have this one giant $550,000 give that no one had to put skin in the game. So that's my concern. I don't need to say anything else. That's where I'm standing. So that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've talked about budget a lot, but I forget that not everybody who maybe is in the audience now was here for all of those discussions. So I just wanted to point out that, we started our year, we had a shortfall of $7.5 million that we had to make up through reductions and other revenue streams. So I just want to make sure that the general public is aware of that. And then also, read this is so dark. Hold on. My capital improvement, can you read, which one says CIP? Oh, right here, I see it. And then the other thing to point out, every year we have way more requests for needs than what we can actually fund. If you look back for what was requested, we had 70, I'm going to make this bigger because I'm kind of blind. We had almost $79 million requested in capital improvements, and we had to reduce that by 2.3, almost 2.34 million in order to balance our budget. So I think that's also just important to point out so people can see those reductions, because you guys work through those reductions in the work sessions, but the public may not have seen some of that process happening as well.
Okay. This is first reading. We need a motion. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Allen. Okay, further discussion. Now, discuss at will.
So I'm in favor of a balanced, structurally balanced budget. I'm going to vote no on first reading, and you know why, but it's not because I'm against a structurally balanced budget.
Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve on first reading ordinance 0202216, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. First reading on ordinance 0202217, amending Title 10 zoning regulations indoor crop production. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the city was approached by a company wanting to start a business in town for hydroponic farming. So after looking through our ordinance, we did not have anything that fit that definition. So Justin Johnson and myself looked at some other ordinances and came up with something we'd like to put in with our Title 10. So going through it, indoor crop production is what we came up with for the definition of it. It's the use of a site for raising and harvesting of indoor crops on a commercial basis, including packing and processing, and including the use of accessory buildings located on site. So we'd add the definition into it. We would put it as a permitted use in highway business, a conditional use in central business, and a permitted use in transportation, warehousing, and commercial district. We did not put anything in the industrial district just because it's either permitted or it's not permitted, it's either a conditional use or it's not allowed in industrial. So there's no point in putting it in there because it would already fall into a permitted use. At the time of the staff report, we hadn't had a meeting. We had that today at noon. It was motioned to recommend approval of it, 6-0 with 1 absent. Discussion during it is we feel that hydroponic farming is probably going to grow more and more. So this isn't just for that business, this definition, it's for overall consensus of businesses to possibly come to the area. Tomatoes, lettuce, things like that are already grown this way. It also does follow the cannabis cultivation ordinance that we have. We had one person during during commission kind of get crossed between the two different things, that she's worried that this indoor crop production would lead to more of that. We have a separate ordinance that will address the medical cannabis side of things. This is different from that. I can answer any questions that you have for me.
I'll just quickly clarify on that medical marijuana aspect of it. So the areas that you've seen or the zones that you've seen in the ordinance match up with where the cannabis cultivation is prohibited or, permitted, conditional, or prohibited. But because you're allowing this does not supersede those medical cannabis restrictions that any of those types of growing operations would still have to go through that much more involved process. So it doesn't open the door for any of that activity to happen outside of that licensing process.
Well, I found the YouTube video very interesting, so I will make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mrs. Charles.
And I guess I understand there's a current facility just by Baltic or somewhere in that?
Over at Renner, they have their research
Renner?
facility. They do have other places around the country and even
Worldwide.
around the world. You have another one?
Would you like to say anything to them, just so they get it?
No.
No?
Yeah.
All right.
What are they gonna grow in here then?
Barley? Barley.
Barley and wheat.
Yep. So the process that this company is going to be using for their hydroponic farming, it's put seeds out on a conveyor belt, just lots of seeds, water it. At day 6, it grows to 8 inches. Bring that conveyor belt back, cut it all up, mix it with alfalfa, hay, and some of their other ingredients. Put it into packages where it sits for 5 days and has a silage type effect with that, and then sell it. They're going to be using this for horses. The facility that they're looking to put this at, it would use about 3,000 acres of farm ground for what this could produce.
How many employees they have?
They set up about 20 employees, I believe, is eventually once it gets going.
Looking for a job, Dan?
No, I don't need one.
All right. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're adjourned.